in that general area. However, archaeology has not determined whether that battle took place or where that battle took place. If there was a battle, you can be absolutely certain that it wasn't the way they claim, the way they say, because, of course, you have to set up Don Rodrigo as being particularly vain and greedy and presumptuous and all sorts of things, right? You have to make him the villain in order to account for the divine justice of his fall, of losing that battle. And so you have to make him into the enemy. You have to make him into the villain. On last night's program, I talked about how he was so impulsive that he couldn't keep his hands to himself, and he deflowered, he spoiled, he raped Florinda la Cava, the daughter of Count Julian of Ceuta, if such a person existed. And so this goes to explaining why Count Julian is so willing to traicionar, to betray him. And, of course, we're talking about his vanity. Here he is, covered with gold, which means he won't be able to swim when he's trying to cross the Guadalete. He is in an ivory, believe it or not, ivory, marfil. Some people talk about an ivory saddle. Some people talk about an ivory carriage being drawn by horses, by white horses. And with un estandarte, his standard, this red standard. This red is going to be important because later in Asturias, Don Pelayo is going to see red in the sky. He's going to see a red cross, and that's going to be the red of that red will become really important during the Reconquista. And so you all have it here, right there in the Battle of Guadalete, red. Okay, I told you how he lost the battle. I told you how he was swimming across the river, and presumably because he was wearing gold or something like that, because of his codicia, because of his avaricia, because of his greed, he was drawn into the water and se ahogó. He drowned, or he survived. Actually, there's a place toward Portugal where they say that he lived for a few more years as a refugee. And there's an epitaph and a tomb in this ermita, in this chapel, Portugal. In any case, that was the fate, el destino, that was the fate of poor Don Rodrigo. Now, he had bodyguards with him, his garde du corps. He had swordsmen, right? Sword, espada, and swordsmen, people who are good with swords. One of his swords, this is espadarios in Latin, well, in Hispanic Latin, espadarios, and one of these was supposedly Don Pelayo, the same one that we're going to see a little later in Covadonga. Now, in order to make this story more interesting, they have created a kind of backstory which explains everything. Now, what we do know is that he was in the middle of a civil war. We do know that the sons of the previous king, Águila, Alamundo, and Artobas, the three of them, all three beginning with the letter A, all of them had fought a bitter civil war, and then Alamundo and Artobas, under the pretext of trying to stop this invader, they were actually working with the invader. They wanted the invader to come and to help them, which is exactly what happened. Afterwards, Aguila, supposedly, he went to Damascus to talk to the caliph, right, the Khalifa, to the caliph himself, and to press his case and how he would be a good commander in the new province of, well, what is going to be Al-Andalus. Now, we know that the newcomers under Tariq, that they didn't wait, that they began to attack all different places. In some places, they were welcomed. Some places did not resist because, supposedly, these were the allies of the sons of the ex-king. These, wherever there were Bitithanos, right, it was King Bititha, and wherever there were partisans of Bititha, the gates were opened. Whenever there were people resisting Bititha and in favor of Don Rodrigo and his usurpation, because that's exactly what he had done. He had usurped the throne. But wherever he had friends, then the newcomers, Tariq, had enemies, and the gates were closed. Now, this was Pelayo, supposedly an espatario of Rodrigo, and supposedly the grandson of one of the ex-kings of Chintasvinto. Now, in a previous kingdom, earlier, when Ejica was king, he had sent Pelayo's father, Fafila, up into Galicia. And we don't know why Galicia was important at that time, but it was. It was, undoubtedly. And there, in Tui, his son met, his father Fafila, met Bititha, and the two of them fought. In some of the stories, some of the versions, they fought over a woman. In any case, Bititha killed Fafila, killed the father of Pelayo, which is why Pelayo was so very happy when Don Rodrigo rose up and se sublevó, when he rose up and derrocó and threw out Aguila. So, in this version, well, they say that Pelayo, being the son of Fafila, at this point, his life was in danger, and so they say he went on a pilgrimage, a peregrinaje, a pilgrimage to the Holy Land. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't square, no cuadra. It doesn't square with what we know, because at that time, the Holy Land was under Islam. It was under Islamic domination. The Byzantines had lost the Holy Land at that point. So pilgrimages were not possible. In any case, in this version, Rodrigo and Pelayo are in fact cousins. Rodrigo's father, Fafila, and Pelayo's father, Fafila, and Rodrigo's father, Teodofredo, were brothers. Now, in this case, yes, Teodofredo, possibly from Asturias, possibly one of the kings of Asturias. We know very little about what happened in the north at that time. We know that there was the headquarters of the north was Amaya, in what is today the province of Burgos. Amaya, which has been abandoned for a long, long time, but Amaya, which played a very, very prominent role in Spanish history. But Amaya we know about, but other places we really don't. There's not a lot of historical data, and so we can't really determine what was what. In any case, presumably in Asturias at that time, there was some kind of rule, some kind of dominion. There were some kind of Visigoths in control, and this idea means that Fafila, the father of Pelayo, has property up there, or at the very least, he has friends up there. In any case, after the defeat at Guadalete, after the fiasco at Guadalete, Pelayo goes north to where his father has friends. You can imagine everybody running away from that battle toward Toledo. That was the first place you would go, Toledo. If Toledo was in danger, if you thought that the invaders were going to take over Spain, you would, of course, have to be, you would have to be prescient. You would have to be able to see the future to know that these invaders were going to take over Spain. But if you believed that, then, of course, you would want to go north. You would want to go to a place like Narbonne. You would want to go to a place like Amaya in Burgos. And many people did. Many people did. Refugees going north. But the fact is that Pelayo had another idea. He went to Asturias. And why Asturias? Well, yeah, maybe because, as they say, his father was sent to Tui. Maybe his father was from the north. Maybe his father was from Galicia. Maybe his father was even from Asturias. In any case, Pelayo is there in the area around Piloña, I think, Cangas de Onís. In any case, that's where we find him. Now, tradition has it that, of course, first he went to Toledo. And in Toledo, the archbishop gave him for safekeeping, because the archbishop knew that Toledo was going to be attacked imminently. The archbishop gave him part of the lignum crucis, part of the true cross. And on an earlier last Thursday's program, I told you that the true cross was actually taken from the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem by Coroes II, the Sassanid king, right? The Persian king, taken from Jerusalem and only given back much later to Constantinople. So Constantinople supposedly has the true cross. In any case, Toledo believes it has part of the true cross and gives part of that true cross to Pelayo to take up north. In addition to which, one of the patrons of Toledo, San Ildefonso. San Ildefonso was actually one of the first to benefit from Recaredo and his conversion to Catholicism. You remember that Recaredo converted to Catholicism, which meant that the Catholic Church was now open to Visigoths. Visigoths could rise up through the Catholic Church. They couldn't before. There was an apartheid, and the Visigoths could only stay with other Visigoths. They could only marry other Visigoths, and they could not be part of the traditional Roman power structure. Well, after one generation, you got people like Ildefonso, which, by the way, it's the same root as Alfonso. It's the same name as Alfonso. Ildefonso, Alfonso. In any case, Ildefonso becomes very prominent in Toledo, one of the first people to talk about the status of Mary, mother of Jesus. The first person, one of the first person to defend the virgin birth of the Virgin Mary, and her role in the church, because at that time, in the early Middle Ages, she didn't really have a role. You see her, for example, in Byzantine icons, and you see her even in Romanesque, right? El arte romanico. Even in Romanesque art, the Virgin Mary is like a piece of furniture. She doesn't have an expression. She's not really human. She's there to sort of emphasize baby Jesus. She doesn't get a role, and she doesn't become central to the church until centuries later. So San Ildefonso was centuries ahead of his time. And in one of his visions, the Virgin Mary appears to him and gives him una casulla, right? She puts on a cassock, puts a cassock on him. And so la casulla de San Ildefonso, the imposición de la casulla, that, of course, is one of the most memorable things about Toledo. He becomes a patron saint of Toledo, and that cassock is a relic which is also given to Pelayo to take up north to Asturias, or at least according to the legend and lore. Now, very quickly, the Moors begin to take over. As I say, in some places they are welcomed. In other places, for example, in Mérida resists for almost a year. I'll be talking about that later. But Córdoba falls almost immediately, but part of Córdoba, the church of San Jorge, St. George, that takes, 9 months to fall. In any case, there are places, and other places. Yesterday I talked about Orejuela and Teodomiro, Tudmir, who made a deal. Zaragoza makes a deal with the newcomers. But they send out their people, and the person in charge of the north is a man named Munuza. Munuza is given jurisdiction over pretty much all the north. The most important places being Astorga, then Lugo, and Gijón. Gijón, actually, presumably the start of a naval base, because at that time the conquerors, the Moors, were very strong and very ambitious. And so, presumably, they were going to have a fleet up there. Very shortly afterwards, of course, they would be caught in all kinds of conflicts, and there would be a power vacuum. Vacío de poder, a power vacuum, which is, of course, going to give living space to the kingdom of Asturias. But at that time, they were the undisputed masters of the north. And so Munuza was there, in Lugo, in Astorga, and in Gijón. Now, everybody knew that Pelayo was up there. Everybody knew that he and a few of the men were causing problems. I suppose by acclamation he was given the title of caudillo, right? They would have done this perhaps because he was somehow connected to the old regime, to Visigoth legitimacy. However, that doesn't explain the name Pelayo. Pelayo is Pelagios. Pelayo is a Greek name. Historians do not explain how this man has a Greek name. His father's called Fafila, which is Visigothic. His son is going to be called Fafila, which is Visigothic. But he has the name Pelagius, which is the sea in Greek. In any case, he does have a sister named Adosinda, which also Visigothic name. In any case, Adosinda, according to the legend, Adosinda is very beautiful, and the local commander, Munutha, is interested in her and wants her to be his wife. And again, according to legend, this is motivation enough for Pelayo to resist, for Pelayo to get up and resist the invaders. In any case, up there in the north, in Covadonga, by the way, cueva, cave, Dominga or Dominica, which is the lady, right? Covadonga, cave of the lady. So again, we're seeing the influence here, presumably the influence of the Virgin Mary. In any case, this kind of resistance does not go without its consequences, without its punishment. And so the governor at that time, Anbasa, he sent a man named Alcama to the north to teach these people a lesson and presumably to eradicate the vestiges of resistance up in the mountains in the north. And this is what's going to happen. It's all going to happen in Covadonga in 722, but I have to take a short break now.
Miguel Indurain, Ruth Beitia, Jorge Lorenzo, Carolina Marín, Marc Márquez, Mireia Belmonte, Rafa Nadal, Garbiñe Muguruza. What do they have in common? They're champions. Why are they champions? Because they did not make excuses. Miguel Indurain, 5 Tour de France. Why did he win them? Because he wanted to. He practiced relentlessly, day in, day out. Hail, rain, sleet, and snow. By himself, alone, on the mountain, in terrible conditions, because he wanted to win. He practiced. He had great coaches. He had great teachers. So did the rest of those Spanish champions. Why am I talking to you about this? Because if you want to become a champion of English, we have the solution for you. We have the master's program, but most of all, we have the best teachers, the best coaches who will solve your problem. Is it easy? No. Is it difficult? Yes. Is it hard? It's very hard. But as John Fitzgerald Kennedy said, we don't do things because they are easy. We do them because they are hard. So this is a 5-month program, a hard, long, difficult program. But it's also fun because all of these champions love what they do. They love what they do mostly because they had a coach, a teacher, a technician who helped them, who motivated them. That's what we do. We don't teach you, we motivate you. We have the best motivational teachers in Spain. If you want to avail of them, come to us. We have the best motivational coaching program for English in Spain, and it's called The Masters. So let me repeat the names. Miguel Indurain, Ruth Beitia, Jorge Lorenzo, Carolina Marín, Marc Márquez, Mireia Belmonte, Rafa Nadal, Garbiñe Muguruza. World champions, the best at what they do because they work hard and they have great motivators behind them. If you want to become a champion of English, come to Vaughan, come to Vaughan and do our master's program. Good luck.
Últimos días para conseguir tu máster de inglés profesional con una oferta inigualable. Consulta condiciones en grupobaugan.com o llamando al 911335833. ¿Todavía no has hecho tu prueba de nivel? Infórmate sin compromiso. 911335833. Consulta también el Executive Master en inglés profesional, disponible en Valencia, Barcelona y Madrid.
Vaughan Empresas es mucho más que clases de inglés para empresas.
Mucho más.
Tenemos varios tipos de cursos a vuestra disposición, como nuestros cursos In Company, con profesores que se desplazan a vuestra empresa para dar allí las clases en el horario que acordéis con ellos.
Nuestras clases online y telefónicas con varios niveles y temáticas disponibles. ¿Buscas un curso que se adapte a las necesidades de los empleados? Entonces buscas Vaughan Empresas.
Infórmate ya en el 91-133-5831 o en grupobaugan.com.
Papá,
Dime.
¿puedo hacerte una pregunta?
Sí, claro.
¿Por qué mamá y tú habláis tan mal en inglés?
La niñez es el momento en que hacemos preguntas incómodas. También es el momento perfecto para aprender inglés. Si no quieres que tus hijos se hagan mayores en saber inglés, olvídate de los viejos métodos que utilizaron contigo. Descubre Vaughan Junior, un método que despierta sus ganas de aprender y su curiosidad por el inglés. Aprenden de forma natural y divertida. Llámanos ahora al 91 133 5832.
Si tu objetivo es poner en marcha un proyecto y alcanzar el éxito como líder de equipos, Richard Vaughan y Javier Fernández Aguado presentan la tercera edición del seminario Emprender y Liderar, las claves del éxito. El 17 de marzo en Áncora, Madrid, calle Trafalgar 6. Venta exclusiva online. Entra en grupobaugan.com/seminario.
Welcome back. This is Western Civilization from Mesopotamia to Silicon Valley. On the first part of the program, I was speaking about Pelayo. I was speaking about what happened after the Battle of Guadalete, after Don Rodrigo died, and how Pelayo, supposedly his cousin, or supposedly his bodyguard, a swordsman, excuse me, how he was able to escape, how he went first to Toledo and then up inexplicably into Asturias. And there has been a lot of backstory. There's been a lot of explanation about why he would be up there in Asturias. But the fact is that we don't know. We don't know enough about what it was like there. And so Don Pelayo has just become a cajón desastre. Right? He's become a grab bag for all kinds of legends and all kinds of stories. Excuse me, I have something in my throat. In any case, he is what people want him to be, and there are people who want him to be Celtic. Right? There was a lot of Celtic influence in the north. And of course, when the Anglo-Saxons attacked Britain, when the Anglo-Saxon invaders came to Britain, the Celtic population, the Romano-Celtic population, some of them went away. Some of them sailed away. Some of them went to Bretagne in France. And so Brittany in France was originally the Celtic refugees from Britain. And some of those Celtic refugees went to Galicia. We know this. They arrived in the area around Montañedo in Galicia. And for many, many years, they were separate people with their separate rights, their separate literature, separate separate jurisdiction. This is how we know. They had a separate jurisdiction. And the ecclesiastical authority was different. They were welcomed. Okay, so, there was a Celtic presence. And so, some people want him to be Celtic. Some people want him to be some sort of primitive, like those barbarians, that resisted the Romans for so long, like a pre-Roman or a pre-Christian, even that. And so, as I say, the name is Greek, but everybody wants him to be a Visigoth. And people would like to create a kind of a version of King Arthur. King Arthur, El Rey Arturo, King Arthur and his round table and his knights, his paladins. People would like that. But what we know is very little. And as I say, in this kind of vacuum, vacío, in this kind of vacuum, the stories begin. The lore begins. In any case, we know he married Gaudiosa, or at least Gaudiosa, the Happy, that's her name, Happy, from Liébana. What was happening at Liébana, we do not know. We know that Amaya, the northern capital, as I say, in a on rocks. It was a city located on a very, very high place in what is today the northern part of Burgos. And it was brought under siege. The local commander had to go as a refugee into deep Cantabria, much closer to the sea. Now, we don't know anything about these people. In another place, they talk about San Millán de Cogolla. And San Millán, there's an anecdote in his biography. They say that San Millán goes to the Senate of Cantabria. A Senate? Under Visigothic rule, there's a Senate, right? He goes to the Senate of Cantabria, and he tells them that he has had a vision from God that they will be annihilated, aniquilados, that they will be ruined very shortly. Okay? And that's all we really know. But this biographer talks about a Senate in Cantabria. Does that mean that these people were Romans? Does that mean these people were, by Senate, does he mean like a Cantabrian tribe that's organized in some kind of group? Well, we just don't know. We just don't know. We do know that the local commander up there had to leave Amaya, that Amaya was taken, and the local commander, El Duque Pedro, which is not a Visigothic name, Duque Pedro had to go up north into Cantabria. This is going to be important because Duque Pedro has a son named Alfonso, and that son is going to marry Pelayo's daughter. And that's going to be the first union. That's going to be what makes Asturias grow. Asturias and Cantabria united through this marriage. So yes, in Amaya, with all kinds of, again, refugees from the Battle of Guadalete. It's taken them 11 years to get this far, but they're there now. So yeah, with Gaudiosa from Liébana, he has a son and a daughter. Pelayo Pelayo's son, Fafila, takes over after Pelayo dies. But Fafila is killed by a bear almost immediately. We don't know anything else about him. Killed by a bear. And so it has to be Ermesinda, his daughter, Ermesinda, who takes things on. Ermesinda is married to the son of El Duque Pedro, the son Alfonso. And this is going to be the beginning of the line of kings that everybody, until relatively recently, that everybody was going to memorize. First you memorize the Visigothic kings, and then immediately after that, it's Alfonso the First of Asturias. So Fafila killed by a bear. Now, Pedro, because we don't know anything about him, the Duque Pedro, they do, in places, they mention that he was the son of a king as well, that he was the son of King Herbigio. You remember that Herbigio himself, the son of a refugee from Byzantium, a man named Ardabasto, he was the darling of the court in Toledo. Everybody loved him. He must have been very special, charismatic, and extremely ambitious, but kind of stupid and worthless. In any case, he took a great king, Bamba, and by surprise, by treason, he usurped the power from that king, Herbigio. Later he became a complete muñeco de trapo, right? He became a rag doll for the nobility and the ecclesiastic authority. They could do anything they wanted with him. They manipulated him. And his daughter, who was also no good, his daughter married Ergica, and Ergica, as soon as Herbigio died, Ergica divorced his wife and didn't want to have anything to do with the memory of Herbigio. In any case, this Herbigio, this King Herbigio, supposedly the father of Don Pedro, el Duque de Amaya, Duque del Norte, de Cantabria. Now, here we have the beginning of a new dynasty between Asturias and Cantabria. Meanwhile, you've got a real rivalry between Tariq or Tarif, the person who came over. Some say he was Bereber, some say he was a Berber. Some people give him. In any case, he wasn't a genuine Arab, and so he didn't have that prestige. Some people call him un liberto. Some people say he was a freeman, right? That a former slave who had been freed. In any case, he was in a subservient position, in a subordinate position to Musa. Now, Musa had very strong patrons. Musa was the client of the brother of the caliph. Musa had started off in Basora, or Basra, in what is today Iraq, right? In the where the Tigris and the Euphrates come together, in that whole delta region. Basora, one of the big cities. Anyway, he was accused there of fraud, and he had to run. He went to Cairo He did a good job in Cairo. And finally, he got the big job, which was in North Africa, Ifriqiya. The province of Ifriqiya, the head of Ifriqiya, that area was Kairouan, not Cairo, but Kairouan, not so, well, in modern Tunisia, I believe. In any case, a beautiful city. And Musa was in charge. And Musa, when he saw that Iberia, the Iberian Peninsula, was vulnerable, the whole idea, of course, was to keep conquering, keep going. He asked for permission, and he sent Tariq out to do it. And Tariq, from the beginning, was insubordinate. Tariq didn't communicate what he was going to do. Every time Musa wanted to see Tariq, Tariq didn't want to come back. Tariq was gone for years, and Musa was increasingly angry. And this was going to create a lot of bad blood. This was going to create a rivalry between them. In any case, Musa made sure that, they had a confrontation in Talavera. I'll be talking about that on another program. But in any case, Musa, both Tariq and Musa, they're fighting so much, they have to go back to Damascus to explain themselves to the caliph. And so when Musa goes back, he gives Ceuta to his son, to Marwan, Ifriqiya to another son, Abdallah, and Abdulaziz gets Spain. Recently, there had been an attack. There had been a garrison of soldiers in Sevilla, and the local people had simply attacked them and killed them. And so Sevilla was a trouble point. So what they did was he sent his son, Abdulaziz, to Sevilla to restore order. And so that became the de facto headquarters, the de facto capital of new Moorish Spain. A little later, it's going to be Cordoba, naturally. We'll talk about that a little later, but at first, Sevilla. He went there with his wife. Now, who was his wife? Abdulaziz, the son of Musa, a conqueror in his own right. He was the one who had made the deal with Teodomiro. He was the one who conquered Pamplona, Barcelona, all the way up to Septimania, all the way up to Narbonne in France, in what is today France. Portugal, all of Portugal fell under Abdulaziz. Who was his wife? Well, his wife was the ex-wife of Don Rodrigo. His wife, some people call her Eguilona, some people call her Ejilona, and some people call her Exilona. I have seen all three versions of that name. And so here she was Rodrigo's wife, and then she becomes the wife of the son of the commander, the overlord, in Muslim Spain. In other words, she is a turncoat. She is a renegade. She changed sides. And you can't do that. So later, in the Reconquista, they made up stories about her to justify this. One of the stories, naturally, is that she was so angry with Rodrigo because of Florinda la Cava, right? Because of the daughter of El Conde Julián, that this was her revenge. Going over to the enemy was her revenge on an unfaithful, infiel, on an unfaithful husband. Okay, that's one story. Another story, which explains it much better, was that she was actually a Muslim all along. And so this legend has her at the beginning in Denia. Under Rodrigo, during the civil war with Aquila, under Rodrigo, he ordered that city walls be demolished, which of course was going to make things very easy for the Moors. In any case, many city walls were demolished, but not those of Denia. And from Denia, they could see that a ship was coming. What? There was a ship on the horizon. And at first, they were afraid, but then they saw that there was only one ship. And it was a beautiful ship. The standards were of silk, seda. The oars, remos, the oars were bright red, the sails, and but it was sailing in a very strange way. They could see it had been damaged. And it didn't dock, right? It ran aground, se encalló. It ran aground on the beach. They could see that it was destroyed. And out of the ship came these people who were very well dressed. You could see these were North Africans, clearly Moorish. And they say that the daughter of the king of Algiers is on board. And she is there as a bride because she is destined, she is promised to marry the king of Tunisia, the king of Tunis. And her name is Ayata. All right. This is going to be Ejilona. This is how they explain it later, right? That she was really Muslim all along. In any case, they are invited to go to Toledo. And when they go to Toledo, Don Rodrigo sees her, she sees him, and it is love at first sight. Both the young lovers, they become inseparable. There is only one obstacle to their union. Well, first of all, yes, that she is supposed to marry the king of Tunisia. And secondly, that she is a Muslim. So finally, yes, she converts, she is baptized, she becomes a Christian, and there, they live happily ever after, of course, until the Moors arrive. This, by the way, gives extra motivation to the Moors to attack, because they've taken that queen. In any case, Ejilona loses her husband and takes refuge in Mérida. Remember that Mérida held out for more than a year. According to one legend, here they are. It's the time of Ramadan, right? It's the time of the ritual ayuno, the fasting during the daytime. And at the end of Ramadan, you have a celebration. So Mérida has been holding out for resisting for more than a year. It's the end of Ramadan. There is a celebration. And the commander there, Musa, they see Musa, and Musa is dressed in a way they haven't seen before. And he has dyed his hair. So his hair, which was gray, is now brown, I suppose, with henna. In any case, he looks 20 years younger than he did. And in this version, the people see him rejuvenated, and they become afraid. They believe that this is some kind of magic, and so they give up. They open the gates to him. Yeah, the Visigoths are that superstitious. Well, in any case, that's one of the stories. Now, Musa gets in trouble. Musa is called to Damascus. Musa leaves his son in charge of Spain. Egilonda marries his son, marries Abdulaziz. Now, they start talking about her because evidently she does not want to convert to Islam. She wants to stay a Christian. And theoretically, you respect that kind of decision. Supposedly, the people of the book, that's what they're called, people of the book, people who are monotheistic and believe in the Bible, Jews and Christians, in theory, are supposed to be respected. Of course, that's the theory. There's another theory, by the way, that all of the believers of Islam, the Ummah, that all of them are the same, and they are supposed to be treated the same. But of course, in practice, it doesn't work that way either. And so, in Spain, you had the Baladíes. The Baladíes are the old guard, the ones that came there from Arabia originally. And by the way, the Arabians from places like Mecca, Medina, and the Arabians from the south, from Yemen, they don't, no se llevan bien, they don't get along. And you can imagine the recent converts, the ones from Egypt, the ones from Damascus. Now, they don't get along. And you've got the Berbers, los bereberes, the ones from North Africa, again, recent converts, they don't get along. Then you have the newcomers. You have the Hispano-Romans and Visigoths who convert to the new religion, Muladíes. The Muladíes are treated like second-class citizens as well. And they rebel. They don't like the way they're treated. So in theory, the Ummah is the same. But in practice, what we're going to see is real conflict. And this conflict is going to be fatal for Abdulaziz. Everybody says it's Egilonda's fault, but I've run out of time. I'm going to have to continue this story on my next program.
Escucha, descubre, aprende. Esto es Vaughan Radio.